Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of the Alegree Insider's Look podcast. In this series, we talk to the professionals of the guitar industry to learn a bit about the inner workings of the industry, what it's like working within it, and perhaps get a look into what we have to look forward to in the near future. In this first episode, I am joined by Ed. Hello, Ed, and thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell the audience who you are.
Hi Alex, thanks for having me on. My name's Ed and I run a business called Six String Supplies, and our specialty is guitar electronics, to sum it up.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to start this podcast, essentially go chronologically from when you first started guitar to where you are today. So I'm going to go straight in with when did you first pick up a guitar?
I was a bit of a sheep actually, so I joined. My parents really wanted me to go to a grammar school, and I failed the 11 plus, passed the 12 plus, which would make you join the school in year 8. And I noticed very quickly when I joined year 8 of secondary school, all the cool kids were playing either guitar, bass, or drums. It was for some reason it was really, really popular. That kind of alternative music scene, which up until that age I hadn't really come across. So I was by no means a sheltered childhood, but the first CD I ever bought was Spice Girls. That, and take that I've got somewhere on CD. And then as soon as I joined secondary school, I realised quite quickly, I mean, if I wanted to fit in, I'd have to get into rock and roll. So then, I just came across the likes of Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and I think everyone did around that time. And then one Saturday, my parents took me to the music shop in Salisbury, my hometown. And I couldn't tell you what it was, but it was, one of those 100 quid black strap Eric Clapton lookalike guitars.
Yeah.
And the shop owner, he sold it to me just by saying, "Oh, that's one that Eric Clapton used." Obviously not the same, but and unfortunately, I did actually end up selling that guitar, and I really wish. I think everyone wishes they kept their first guitar, but
Yeah, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. It was when I first decided that I was going to get on with modding guitars and building stuff that I looked at it and went, I could do some modifications to this.
exactly, yeah. I think that's how it
And
started.
then, yeah, that didn't go so well. Yeah, funny you should say that. Year 8, actually. Year 8 was when I first started as well. So I suppose everyone sort of gets to the age then when, you want to impress the girls and stuff. You go, well, I've heard guitars are interesting.
That's exactly
So
right.
yeah, that wasn't quite my story, but yeah, I wonder if that's why a lot of people tend to start around about that sort of age.
I like to think so. I mean, I was a bit of a sheep and did it to fit in, but no regrets whatsoever. I mean, I imagine the landscape's changed a lot now. I can't imagine that many kids going into secondary school or even younger and wanting to pick up a guitar. I mean, I'm sure they still do, but I reckon the figures probably have dropped. It'd be interesting to see if there are any. I don't think there are any official stats on that, but
I think Fender, with their new incentive of doing this like YouTube video, I'm sure everyone who's listening today has seen the new Fender adverts for new Fender. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but they're doing some sort of video series. Fender Play, that's it, yeah. I'm sure they've done studies on. They were saying the biggest problem with the guitar industry is the retention. So it sounds like we get plenty of people picking up a guitar, but so many of them just give up with it because it's something you have to work on for a long time before you get any real level of satisfaction or you really get anywhere, I feel, which in a day nowadays with instant gratification, with video
I was very fortunate. My parents, I was taking it quite seriously, and my parents well and truly supported me. They put me through. I couldn't do anything at all. I picked it up, and it was at the beginning just an image thing. Still is, to be honest. As a bit of a bedroom player only. But my parents put me through 1 year of guitar lessons, and I remember the very first lesson. The teacher came to our house, and we were in we're in the main room, and he brought his little amp along, and I obviously had one of those starter kits with the amp and the lead and everything. And my mum came in just as he sat down and said, "Now remember, Ed, you won't be able, you won't be very good after one lesson." And the bloke said, "No, but he will be after two." It always stuck with me. So I had a year of lessons every week, really. And then I just started. It was that age. It was that time when the internet and like Ultimate Tab and all these tab websites started really starting to spring up. So I would. My favourite band of all time is a band called Silverchair from Australia. And obviously I loved Nirvana. So I think I went through a period when I'd come home from school and play every single song off every single album all the way through, and I could play it note for note just from reading guitar tabs. Um, and unfortunately, I think due to life and work and other things, I was a much better player 15 years ago. Uh, I've gone from playing 4 hours a day to 4 hours a month, which is really quite sad. But um, it's something that from what I understand, a lot of other guys in the industry, you just don't always have the time anymore, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah.
but I do make a conscious effort. Friday night is my YouTube sing along guitar playing night, um, with a couple of drinks, of course, just to make it more interesting. Um, and that'll be it, really, because I literally don't have the time. As I'm sure you know, if you're running a business, or it
Oh
doesn't matter
yes,
if you're running a
absolutely.
business or not, if you've got a day job or whatever, it is simply about finding the time. But that's one of my New Year's resolutions, actually, just to play a bit more.
Yeah, well, funny you should say that because I find myself actually very recently in the very same position because I've been going in and out of bands recently and currently outside of a band and struggling to find the incentive because if you're in a band, you're writing originals, you're with other people, then you tend to have a lot of motivation to write and play and practice and all the rest of it. But when you're not, then you don't really have uh, that drive to play and be on top of your game. So yeah, I've really noticed that over the last couple of weeks or so. I haven't been playing as much as I normally do. I was a bit worried when I started the business, actually, thinking it's so closely annexed to one of my hobbies. Is it going to take the magic out of it? Am I going to lose my love for it?
Yeah, I mean, as we're having this conversation, I'm looking at what I have done over the last couple of years, as I'm sure many have, is either build a parts caster or buy a cheap Squire off eBay to modify it. So I buy cheap guitars just to do YouTube videos. Um, if you have to do a video on how to install a Telecaster pickup, and you haven't got a Telecaster, you don't really want to be doing it on a 800 quid guitar, do you? So you get the cheapest thing you can possibly find on eBay or at a guitar show. Um, but I do wonder if it's the same if you work with or on guitars every single day. I guess your time away from it isn't really going to be picking up a guitar and playing. That's what I found anyway. Um, but no, like I say, it's one of my resolutions this year, just to play a lot more. But so far, it's not going so well.
Okay, well, it's early days, so you've still got plenty of time to work on that, I suppose. But yeah, I definitely think nowadays when you do have a full-time job and you have a lot going on, it's less that you see a guitar, you pick it up and you go start noodling and oh I've lost 2 hours. It's you actually do have to make the conscious effort to pick a guitar up and work on it now. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
especially working in the industry, I think there's not the I remember probably 5 years ago if I saw a guitar there'd be I think every guitarist has it. If you see a guitar, you have it in the back of your brain, some sort of thing pulling at you, going, pick up that guitar, play something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got four guitars on my rack at the moment, and only one of them's playable. The others, one of them is just an empty strap body with a neck attached with no pick guard or anything. And I picked up an Epiphone 335 specifically to do a video on how to install a 335 wiring harness. Um, and I can't do it. So that guitar's just been sat there with no pickup or strings for about 6 months. I bought it last summer, so 6 months or so. And it's on the list. It will get done one day, but it's just a question of when.
Yeah, that is definitely the problem with being self-employed and having your own business. It's not a question of what needs to be done; it's what you need to prioritize. You have a to-do list of about 50 things to do, and only enough time to do about 10 of them, I find.
Yes, but I mean that's the key. That's the key for me. Time, especially if you're a one man business in this day and age. So you've got to keep up to date on all your social media channels. Um, the priority is obviously selling your product and delivering your product to to paying customers. So that's always the priority. Then the second one is well, probably equally as important legally anyway. Accounting. I don't know about you, but I find myself having to do as the business is growing and growing. I used to be able to get away with doing the accounts. The first year I could do them once a year because there was very little business. And then gradually it's been had to do once a month. Then I've had to do it once a week, every Sunday, just to keep up to date with the week's accounts. And so far this year, it's becoming every day, which is good, and again equals less time. But on top of that, everything else, all the I'm trying to build a YouTube channel. I just haven't. I've done one video in about 4 or 5 months, and it's actually probably my mainstream of not income by any means, but it's probably the most successful social media channel for me in the amount of business it generates. So that's another thing that I'm trying to do going forward is just to upload more regular content to YouTube. But it's again, it's a question of time. So.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. With YouTube, it also brings in an awful lot of traffic for me. What is it that you think about YouTube that if you make because I certainly see it in my metrics, because I have a metric for Facebook and YouTube. The average person who comes from Facebook looks at 2 pages on the website as opposed to someone from YouTube who looks at 7. What do you think it is about a YouTube video that really brings someone in, that really engages them, makes them more interested in your business?
Um, well, there's a couple of things. So for me, the reason why I started a YouTube channel, I mean, honestly, I think anyone that sets up a YouTube channel now is probably a bit. The horse is already bolted. I think it's. I think the time to really get on YouTube was 10 years ago, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I didn't set up a channel to become a YouTuber at all. And as an income stream, it's completely negligible anyway. The reason why I did it was because I started selling um, guitar wiring kits. So like your switch and your pots and everything, uh, all in one packet, a bit like your pickup kits for whoever's buying it to solder it themselves, and it would come with a wiring diagram. And obviously for me, I found it quite easy. But I started getting quite. I realised very quickly that I get a lot of people going, "Oh, how do I do this? I'm not sure where to put this wire." So I started doing these tutorials on how to wire a Strat, how to wire a Telecaster, how to wire a Les Paul, how to do this, how to do that. The main motivation to do that was to minimise the amount of people that would be emailing on a Friday or Saturday night going, "Oh, I can't do this." Um, and it's kind of gone on from there, really. I was at a guitar show last October, the International London one in the Kempton Racecourse. Um, and we only ever have like a very small individual table. It's all we need. Really good day out, and a gentleman was just talking to me, and he goes, "Oh, I recognise your voice." And then he looked at the business card and goes, "Ah, you're the guy that does the wiring. Excuse me, the wiring videos." Because I never show my face. I'm quite a shy person, really. And he goes, "You're like the anti-hero. We just all we see is your hands and how to do this." And that really like touched me in a good way. Like I was like, "Oh, that's really cool to be called an anti-hero," because it's like I obviously he found it very helpful. And I think going back to your original question, it's just engagement, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about you, but the amount of people now that will just gormlessly scroll down their phones whenever there's a video playing, because I think Facebook now automatically most of the videos are set to autoplay, even if you want to watch it or not. I just find myself watching it. Um, but I guess mainly for my niche, it's a wiring diagram will only get you so far. If you actually watch someone how to do something,
Yeah.
they obviously find it easier. And I don't mean my channel is very small, but the amount of engagement I get on a daily basis, no, it's very, very encouraging. So that's the intention, really, to keep the YouTube channel going. But knowing that it will never ever be, never will be like a YouTuber. Although I guess technically, if you upload a video, you are. But
Yeah, never say never. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when I'm doing YouTube, I feel I treat it more as a hobby than a job, to be fair, in that I feel YouTube, to some extent, you can justify doing things that you wouldn't otherwise do just for the sake of curiosity to make a good video. I've done a few videos of, I think the one that really does it is that I made a 54K neodymium magnet humbucker, which has absolutely no real world applications whatsoever. It's just a crazy experiment. And as you were saying with engagement, I feel that sort of title is quite clickbaity, but I do find, as you say, a lot of engagement. People come out of curiosity and they get really riled up over it, going, "Oh, this is ridiculous. It sounds awful," and all the rest of it. And not so much that it's negative, but it really gets people thinking, and that people always want to say, "Oh, you could do this with that. You could do this with that," and I don't know. There seems to be something about a YouTube video that really, as you say, it engages people. And I think,
yeah, I mean, I was having a conversation with my friend the other day. I quite love my main passion in life, apart from guitars, is cricket. I love watching cricket. I love listening to cricket on the radio. I don't even have to be watching it. But I also love football. And over Christmas, I got the Amazon Prime free trial just to watch some Premier League games on Boxing Day. And then I realised, well, hang on. Now I'm paying £8 a month for Amazon, £9 a month for Netflix. I've got a Sky Sports subscription on my mobile phone, which is £12 a month. And obviously you got your TV license as well, which is, I don't know, £130 a year, something like that. So I'm actually, by the time you add all that up, it's probably close to £400 a year on entertainment. But I spend the vast majority of my free time or TV viewing on YouTube. Every night I'll be watching something on YouTube. So I'm kind of might have to scale back on some of my subscriptions, because I think I'm not going to say YouTube is the future, because I think it has been the present for quite some time. More and more people. Some of the channels that are springing up are like full-on, fully professional documentary channels. You can find anything on there.
yeah, I completely agree. I would imagine most people in the 21st century in our sort of age range, if you have something to look up to do, YouTube's generally your first port of call for it, isn't it? I think the videoing element, as you were saying with your wiring diagrams and such, a wiring diagram is a very, I don't mean it literally, but more metaphorically, is very two-dimensional, as opposed to a video which is three-dimensional in the way that you're seeing lots of different angles and such. And if you're seeing it being done in front of you, there's it conveys the message so much better than you could ever get across in text or picture or anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's why it's doing so well.
Yeah, the engagement. I mean, I don't have exact metrics. I've got YouTube Studio, but I don't really look at any Facebook metrics or Instagram metrics. But the video engagements is unreal in comparison to just posting a photo or something like that. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, when is it that you started Six String Supplies?
I registered the company at Companies House in 2014, but I didn't start trading for another 2 years. So it was early 2016, because I knew that I've always wanted to have my own business, but I didn't really know what in. And then that somehow evolved into wanting to get into guitar parts. So I don't know how I thought about it, or the name Six String Supplies came to me. I love the use of the alliteration, and it sounds, in my opinion, it's a good name for a guitar parts business. So I registered at a company's house and left it for a couple of years, and then uh, after that, really, I kind of found myself in and out of jobs, not really settled. So I kind of figured, well, it's now or never, really. So started I started off drop shipping from I think a lot of people have done it, drop shipping from other suppliers, and then I got on my very first order that I got. My supplier didn't have it in stock, so I realised straight away I can't do this. I'm gonna have to buy my own stock. Um, and then it evolved from guitar parts. I mean, it is still guitar parts, but I realised it was too competitive. So I decided I needed to carve out a niche. So it's been heavily focused on electronics ever since, really. And that's where we are today.
Okay. So what is it that drove you towards the electronic side?
Um, Again, I think I went to a guitar show. The very first guitar show I went to was done by a company called Southern Guitar Show. So you got Northern Guitar Shows, Mojo Guitar Shows, and Southern Guitar Shows. And they're all three different entities, but there was a company that did one called Southern Guitar Shows in Thame in Oxford. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Thame. And all I had, like a couple of days before, all I had was one bag of pots, a few switches, some capacitors, and a bit of wire. I was like, oh, really, this isn't good enough. So I just knocked up together a couple of pre-wired harnesses just to look like I had a bit more on the stand. Um, and they were rubbish, to be honest. But you live and learn. Um, I don't know. It just kind of evolved from there. Where there weren't many people in the UK. I mean, there are a lot of people doing pre-wired harnesses, a lot of people doing guitar parts. But I decided to, was it 2016, 2017? I was doing a lot of reading up on search engine optimization and Google and how the algorithms work, and I realized that I need to find a niche to stand out. So I think if you search for guitar parts on Google, you'll never find me. I'll probably be on like the third or fourth page. You got your likes of Axecaster, Axis RS, All Parts. They'll all be on the top. Um, but I think if you type in guitar wiring kits and wiring harnesses, I'm generally on the top three positions, which is quite cool. I guess the question now is how the business evolves. We'll have to see. I've got quite a few plans for this year. Um, Obviously Brexit's around the corner, so I'm trying to negate the potential impact or lack of impact of that. I'm not really sure. I guess no one knows.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, I've heard that it sounds like it's pretty sure that it's going ahead at the end of January now, but
oh yeah, it's definitely going ahead.
we
Yeah.
never quite know, to be honest. As you say, I haven't really made any preparations for Brexit because I think anyone's guess as to what's happening is as good as anyone else's, to be honest.
Yeah, and well, I think a lot of people did Brexit planning this time last year, but then they kept pushing it back and pushing it back.
Mm.
Um, I mean, look, no one knows what's going to happen, and everyone is in the same boat, really. I mean, I guess one way to look at it is I do export quite a lot into the EU. I'd probably say 25% is international exported orders, and the vast majority of that is within the EU. But I guess if you've got a product that's good enough and they want to buy it, then they'll buy it, won't they?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It really is all speculation at this point. Do you think it's going to have a significant negative effect? Do you think off the back of that you may be changing your business strategy as a result of that?
No, I mean, I always believe in trying to be proactive and anticipation and trying to do stuff now to divert any possible issues. But it's such an unknown. I mean, what I have tried to do is actually in the last couple of months, I've been working, and so every year the Six String Supplies profits get reinvested with the view of buying placing a large order with the manufacturer rather than having to go through distributors. But obviously, when you order with manufacturers, the MOQ is in the thousands, and this in turn can cost in the thousands. So in the last couple of months, I've started placing. I've placed a couple of nice, large, very big orders with US manufacturers of components, so that I don't have to. And by the time they'll be delivered in the next couple of months, and that will be, God forbid, probably 2 years worth of stock for some of them, which is a lot for any business to have 2 years worth of stock. But then the purchase price is a lot cheaper, and I'm not going to have to worry about where am I going to source these from, at least for a couple of years. In terms of, I mean, I don't know. So I've got a DHL account. We normally send everything because it is just small parcels like guitar parts, and I mean the biggest box I've ever shipped was just over 2 kilos. So you're not talking massive weight. My only minor concern really is exporting. But I've got a DHL account who will probably end up doing the paperwork anyway for exports. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's the attitude of most people, to be honest. What do you think is the hardest thing about getting to where you are today?
It's a good question. I mean, the biggest issue I've had the past year, as well as dividing my time accordingly between running the business or family and everything else, it has been finding a secure supply, which I have now managed to do, of what I would refer to as key components. But I guess going forward, it's how the last 6 months have been a bit of a crossroads in terms of how does the business evolve from here, because doing pre-wired harnesses and electronics is great, but it's never going to make you a millionaire, is it? And whilst the end game isn't to become a millionaire by any means, I believe you have to keep evolving. If you stay still in life in general, then you'll end up getting caught out. So I treated myself. This is quite sad because no one else would buy it for me. I bought one of those Shetton DIY build your own pickup winders from Stu Mac.
Oh yeah,
Christmas.
yeah, I know the ones.
And I wish I'd done a video on how to wire it up, because it took me ages. I read a review somewhere saying it took them an hour. I did it on New Year's Eve. We went out for dinner on New Year's Eve, and I spent the day building this pickup winder. It must have taken me 3 or 4 hours. So I guess the next natural step is to get involved with pickups, but I've only been winding for 1 week, with very mixed results, with no knowledge. So that's going to be another issue with time.
Be careful there. Once you start winding pickups, it's a bit of an addiction.
Yeah, I've got to say, I do find it very therapeutic. The problem is, though, the reason why I've started to do it, most people in the industry know what we do. It's, electronics, wiring, components, pre-wired harnesses. But people out of the industry, like when I see family or friends, they're like, "Oh, what does your business do?" And I'll say, "Oh, guitar electronics." And they go, "Oh, like pickups and that." And I was like, no, I don't actually do pickups. So I thought, I'll give it a go. I currently stock House of Tone pickups, and they're absolutely superb. And I speak to Matt at House of Tone fairly regularly, like once a week or every couple of weeks. And he said to me, because I placed a really large order with him last year, and he said, I think it was that time of year of Christmas and everything, and a couple of big guitar shows. And I was putting no pressure on him at all. But the delivery had taken, because it's quite a big order, but it had taken like a couple of months or so to get the order through. And he was saying, I really, really need to bring in someone to help me out. But he said it would take, in his opinion, it would take at least 12 months to train someone up to wind pickups to his high standard. I mean, they wouldn't be as good as his, or do you know what I mean? But he said realistically it would take 12 months to train someone to do it, and he just doesn't have the time to sacrifice 12 months to someone. So I've always got that in the back of my mind. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long game, really. So it would take, I'm prepared to put the time in. But the UK pickup scene is it's incredible, isn't it? There's so many amazing companies out there.
Yeah. It's definitely booming. There seems to be no shortage demand
Absolutely.
out there for it.
But I'll never be like that. I mean, boutique and everything. I just haven't got the expertise or the knowledge. The intention for me is to do mid-ranged pickups. Nothing boutique. Mid-range, something to complement the current product range. We'll take it from there, really. So we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd, I definitely, well, I started pickups because I think that's probably what got me into the business in the first place. That I bought a couple of Seymour Duncans, and I definitely was not a fan of them. I looked at them and went, "How much have I paid for these? Surely I can do better myself." Being quite young at the time, so
Yeah.
tried making my own, and realized there's a hell of a lot of work and expertise that goes into it, but kind of got addicted on the way. So
Well,
I
I'll
kind
tell
of
you what.
fell into it myself.
I've wound three pickups. Around three this week. I've probably used about 8 or 9 single. I'm only doing single coils at the moment. I've probably used about 8 or 9 single coils worth of wire, which has resulted in three pickups with three different readings and all sorts. I know. I mean, yeah, like I say, I know. I appreciate there's a hell of a lot of skill involved. It's going to take me a long time to get ready. It's just mainly like at the moment it's a development project. I don't think, speaking from experience, I mean I know when I'm developing a product, I won't offer it onto the market for. It will take me at least, I reckon, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 months before I feel comfortable and competent enough in the product to sell it. Because I guess that's one thing I'm quite well known for, is quality. I mean, I have very, very, very few returns. I mean, obviously it's chalk and cheese really, because if you buy a wiring kit and you cover it in solder, I think most people know they can't return it. So I guess that's
Yeah,
probably the reason why I've had so few returns. But rather, I should say very, very, very few complaints or issues over the last couple of years or so.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I think building a reputation is so important in this business, but at the same time, it's so easy to lose that reputation if you drop the ball somewhere and so quickly.
exactly, yeah. I mean, they always say the customer's always right, and the reality is, I mean, they're not always right, but I think, especially when you're talking when you're talking small values as well. I mean, God forbid if I was ever a guitar builder building a guitar, selling it for a couple of £1,000, and someone wanted to return it. I mean, I don't know where you go. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
I had a guy a couple of weeks ago. He wanted to return a Strat kit. It was 60 quid, and for me, 60 quid's a small price to pay for um, potential repercussions of, in this day and age, all it takes is just one keyboard warrior to start something, and you can see it snowball, can't you?
oh
Um,
yes,
but I mean, the reality is with electronics as well, you can recycle a lot of them. If someone returns a kit, you know, you can reuse the capacitor, you can reuse the jack socket. Um, Not so much with the switches, but otherwise, it's yeah.
yeah. What do you think is the thing that's surprised you the most about getting where you are today?
Um, Ooh, put me on the spot there. I guess so I think when I first decided to actually get going in 2016, my brother's a website designer, and he charged me 600 quid to get the website up and running and looking okay. Um, I guess patience, because my first month, I remember my very first order, it was like 17 quid. and because I was drop shipping, my cost price was about 15 quid. So I was making £2 profit on something, and that was the only order that month. And then I think by the end of that year, I probably only turned over. I've got the figures here actually. £1,200 in the first 9 months. Let's say March to December, which is that first initial period. And a lot of my family and friends and my partner were saying, "What are you doing? Just give up." Um, and I think, to be honest, if I'd done that 4 years ago, I would have given up. Um, but it's not like I invested much money or anything, but I'd invested a lot of my own time and effort. So I really, really stuck with it. And I think the second year was about £12,000 turnover. Then it went up to 30 odd, and then it went up to 50 odd. Um, and I'm really pleased in a not arrogant way, but I'm really pleased with myself for not stopping and carry on going. Um, and then we'll just see what the future holds, I guess.
Yeah, it absolutely takes very strong will to go through the the lows of the business. I would say I think that's probably where a lot of people stumble. If you come into it with an optimistic view that when anything goes wrong, then it's a learning experience as opposed to a setback, then
Yeah, 'cause I remember when I started, and you still see it branded around every now and then. There'll be, uh, I don't know if it's like the official government body for business or commerce or whatever, and they'll say that 4 out of 5 businesses startups collapse within their first year. And I was like, well, I am not going to be one of those companies that falls before they even get going, sort of thing.
yeah, but that's crazy statistics. Thinking in the first year,
I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I'm sure that it's a very high percentage of
yeah,
businesses
yeah,
that fail.
I think I read something like that. I think I was looking at 3 years or so for about 2/3 or so.
3 years probably sounds more realistic, but I think it's not so much to do with not having a product, or it's the willpower.
Yeah, I absolutely think starting a business is 90% mental. I think, to be honest, the most important skill for any entrepreneur like ourselves is the ability to be set back and continue going. I don't think it's a particularly difficult job. It's just all mental.
Yeah, and I think especially in this day and age, I think what a lot of people are worried about, and I am still to this day, and everyone is, um, just it just takes one bad review or one. So I actually joined. I know we're both members of the Fretboard Forum.
Yeah.
So about 3 years ago, I joined the forum for the pure purpose of seeing if I was being slagged off or anything like that, because I've learned everything on the job. I didn't know how to solder 4 years ago. Like, YouTube taught me that. So I was conscious of starting to sell products into the market and not wanting to know what other people thought of it. So I joined the forum just to see if I had been mentioned in a bad way in any way or any light, and there was nothing. So I guess no news is good news.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I enjoy the Fretboard Forum, but I kind of just take a back step and read, and just it's a good place for knowledge, just to see what your potential client base is thinking, like what they like, what they don't like, um, what they like about certain products, what they don't like about other products, what they think of snake oil or marketing. And I'm quite conscious of snake oil because I know it's quite big. It is a bit of a concern. So that's one way the fretboard has helped me out. Actually, I kind of you'll see the odd thread about capacitors or what pots to use, or it's the amount, it's the wire in the pickup, or all sorts. I just find it quite fascinating. I
Yeah,
probably spent
just
more
wait until
time
you stumble
reading.
across the thread about Tonewood. That's a
Yeah,
bit conscious.
exactly. I mean, I'm not even qualified to comment on tone wood. My opinion on the wood is I like how it looks, really, more than how it sounds. But that's me as a bedroom player. So I'm a poser.
Yeah, I think in our position, as you say, you have to invest in lots of cheap guitars. So I'd certainly do to try all the different pickup models. I even have to have two of each one, so I can A/B pickups and stuff. You know, you can't really be choosy at the prices that we buy the pickups. You just I don't know if you feel the same way. I do going off at a bit of a tangent here, but do you think a modified cheap guitar can be up there with an expensive guitar?
Uh, to be honest, I've never owned an expensive guitar, so I don't. It's tough. I mean, I've got an Epiphone Les Paul, um, which I ripped out the electronics and put in all the stuff that's perceived to be the best. You know, like CTS and Switchcraft, and I put in some orange drop capacitors and some House of Tone PAF paths pickups. Um, and honestly, it's so nice, so comfortable to play and nice to play. I think a lot of it's pot luck. You can buy an expensive guitar and not get on with it, or you can buy a cheap or even a parts caster. You know, like a decent. Um, I don't know. I guess the fundamental really is if you put in some decent pickups and it's set up correctly and you've got a decent amp, there's no reason why you can't play. I don't think you'd ever get it up to a standard as a custom shop or another high end, but um, certainly giggable and keepable. But
Yeah. So, would you advise anyone out there who's looking for their dream instrument to either just spend a lot and go for the custom shop, or I suppose the equivalent, and unless you're paying really really silly prices for individual components, is probably your Fender USA standard or your typical
yeah,
Gibson.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's all down to the person. I mean, it's really hard to say. But I mean, I've always had this attitude that if I was to win the lottery, I probably wouldn't buy an expensive guitar. But I think the reality is I most absolutely would. It'd be one of the first things I went out and bought. Um, my preference, I guess, for people that like to tinker and play around with stuff, I like to know how things work. So my personal recommendation would be to go and get either do a parts caster, but not get too bogged down in the whole. Oh, you can buy the best tuners and the best pickups and the best this and the best body and the best neck. Just get a cheap one and learn how to assemble it and learn how the circuits work or the pickups and practice to set up. I saw something the other day about a guy. I can't remember where I saw it. He invested a lot of money into an expensive all the best parts really for a Strat parts caster, and he assembled everything. Well, no, he gathered all the parts, but then he wanted to know a tech where he could take it to assemble. And I was like, well, if you're buying all the parts that way, you might as well put it together yourself, surely. But I guess a lot of it's down to confidence, isn't it? A lot of people don't like to get out a soldering iron, or they might not even have the equipment. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think I don't know if this is what you're trying to achieve with your YouTube videos, but I think a lot of people would be very surprised with just how basic it is to assemble a guitar.
yeah, it's confidence. That was the main idea, really, not just to stop people bothering me on asking how to do something. It was mainly just to help others. As that might sound a bit cliched or trying to be charitable. It's not. It's once you know what you're doing, it's really quite. It is actually quite simple, and then the rest of it's just how you present. I mean, from my point of view, anyway, it's product presentation and marketing and everything else. But in terms of actually wiring up a Telecaster, as soon as you know how it works, it's easy to fix.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think going back to the business side of it, there's going to be a lot of people who play guitar who want to modify guitars and such, but then never look at it as some sort of practical idea for them to do. I think a lot of the videos, the YouTube video tutorials on how to do these things, is going to introduce a lot of people to the modding world where they can buy themselves pickups or electronics and such and wire them in themselves. So it certainly makes the market bigger. So from that point of view, I think it's very good for the market.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think I was watching your videos a couple of nights ago. There's one about how to do a humbucker, isn't there?
I think that was my very first video that I put up actually.
Yeah, it's amazing actually with pickups. There's not many videos on there on how to do how to. I mean,
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it because a lot of people want to keep their their technique under wraps, and that's as expected and completely understandable. But I was amazed actually. I just typed in how to wind a single coil pickup because this is me on day one with no knowledge or experience and not pretending that I do. There's only like one or two videos on how to do it.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
I
it
was
was
a bit
good fun
surprised by
learning to do it. It was very much trial and error.
yeah, yeah,
But that's one of the reasons that I have done the series. I think the only thing I'm lacking now is P90, which is a bit counterintuitive. Actually, you were saying you're learning how to do pickups. So I would say to anyone who wants to learn to build their own pickups, P90 is probably the perfect pickup to learn on because they are by far the most simple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say so.
Cool.
Although you've
Thanks for the tip. I'll be looking at getting into that then soon. But yeah, I've wound three or four single coils. Yeah, it's just trial and error at the moment. We'll see how that develops. But yeah, I was just a bit surprised about the lack of video information. Anyway, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet, which has been useful, but I guess my attention span's quite short. I like to watch it being done.
yeah. But I think with stuff like that, you certainly I think the reason there isn't a whole lot of videos out there like that is if you're showing the start to finish build of a pickup, then it is quite a long video, and a lot of people don't want to sit through, 40 minutes or so of how to build a pickup.
Yeah, that's another thing I've been slightly surprised about actually, because my videos are about as niche as you can get. Um, but some of them will be like 45 minutes long. I think the longest one is just under an hour. And I'm like, who the hell is going to want to watch some bloke's hands with a soldering iron for an hour? But the amount of people that do actually watch the whole thing, like, I'm really, because I wouldn't do it. I mean, it must be really, really boring. But if you're inclined to want to know how to do something, you're going to watch it, aren't you? I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's definitely two different people types of people who watch YouTube. There's those who just want the answers as soon as possible, and then those who really want the in-depth answer. And I think there's definitely room on YouTube for both types of videos.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it's about educational really. Because you certainly wouldn't watch Six String Supply's YouTube channel for entertainment. it's, it's very monotonous. The tone of the voice. You never see my face, and it's just two hands commentating on what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm quite yeah. It's very very niche, but it's working so far.
Yeah, exactly. You say it's only two hands and such, but for what you're doing, that's all you need, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Let's talk about the future. So, where do you think Six String Supplies is headed?
Ooh. I don't. I mean, I've got. I'm not really the sort of guy for business plans, and that might worry a few business people out there. It might worry the bank should I ever need to ask for a loan. Um, but I think if you have a business plan, you stick to it, then you're going to be reluctant to change. I did a business plan when I first started, and the very next day it changed, and it changed again the week after that. It has been quite solid the last 2 years, however. Um, Going forward, I guess the medium plan is to, I guess, yeah, medium long term would be to look at introducing a basic pickup range. Hopefully that'll be 2020. Um, I would look at purchasing more and more key components from the manufacturer, which is a big, big investment, but absolutely worth it in terms of uh, having control of your stock and obviously the main benefit being purchase price. as well as quality as well. I have noticed if you buy direct from the manufacturer, rather than from a distributor, sometimes when you buy from a distributor, this is not a slight on any of the distributors by any means. I am myself a distributor. Um, Sometimes when the product's gone through two hands before it gets to you, it can sometimes they'll be damaged. I've just noticed if you buy direct from the factory, it can come in. I don't know why, it just feels a bit sturdier for some reason. That's probably all in my head.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that. You'd expect if it goes through a distributor, then it gets another level of QA.
Exactly. Well, no, it's not. It's just another hand, other hands touching it, and I guess two lots of transport. Anything I mean, I'm talking minute percentages here. I mean, if you order 500 pots from a distributor, five of them will be useless in my experience, but it's negligible really. And the odd switchcraft switches are the main one actually. Sometimes the contacts on them are bent out of place before you even get them. Uh, it's just one of those things, I guess. And then I guess the other thing really is to I try and get to a couple more. I try and do two or three guitar shows every year. Um, some of them are really. I mean, I started going to quite a few years ago, but I've managed to whittle it down to the, not the biggest necessarily, but the best performing for six string supplies. Because it's a lot of effort, a guitar show. Especially if you're a small business and you don't want to get into a hotel or hire out a van. So I tend to wake up at 2 in the morning and drive down to wherever it is on a Sunday, and then by the time you get home in the evening, it's 8 o'clock or whatever, and it's exhausting. Yeah, so I'll
Yeah,
try and narrow those down. I mean, you've done a few shows, you know what I mean.
I've
Uh,
done one myself.
oh yeah, the Kempton one, but you're
Yeah, that's
quite
right.
you're quite local, aren't you? To your Londonish area. So I'm
Guildford.
guessing that wasn't too long a day.
Um, it wasn't, but my sleep schedule was pretty screwed up at the point, so I woke up very early for it. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with someone who was going, "Yeah, I woke up 4 a.m. at this," and I was like, "Yeah, I can beat you. I woke up at 2 a.m." But that had nothing to do with this. That was just my terrible sleep.
Yeah, and then you can spend. I'm quite a last minute type of guy, so for these guitar shows, they're always on a Sunday. They're always at 10, run from 10 till 4. But sometimes, depending on what my stock level, I try and keep stock levels at a certain rate. So I've always got stock. But if someone orders like a pre-wired kit and it's not in stock, uh, I can generally take up to two couple of days to get it wired, packed, and shipped out. But I try and keep two of each possible harness in stock at all times, just so that when someone does order it, I can just ship it straight away, and there's no delay. But with a guitar show, I spend all of the Friday and the Saturday just literally solid 12, 15 hour days just soldering kits just to have some sort of stock for the guitar show. And by the time Monday morning comes around, you're mentally and physically drained. Um,
Yeah, and then the flood comes in after the show just to rub salt into the wound.
yeah, they are really really good actually. My main aim of a guitar show is just to get rid of the business cards because I ordered loads and loads a couple of years ago and I can't get rid of them. Um, so I try and get rid of as many as I can at guitar shows, and that's what it's all about really. Just talking to people, meeting customers, because it's very rare you don't always know your customers, do you? So a lot of them will come
Yeah,
up and say, "Oh, hi, I bought one of your kits last year. How's it going? Blah de blah blah." Um, I'm not overly as long as I sell enough to cover the costs of the show and the petrol and everything else, and what I feel like is the time involved getting ready for it the week before. Um, yeah, it's mainly for marketing, and then you'll always get a rush in the coming weeks afterwards.
yeah,
A
yeah.
spike.
I think one of the most valuable things I took away from the one show that I did is that obviously we're online, so we don't really see the buying practices of customer. But if you're there in person, then you can really see how people look at things, analyze things, what questions they're asking, what grabs their attention, and such. I noticed I had a table literally filled it to the brim, covered it with everything, and probably 90% of people only looked at the very first row. So if something on the very first row didn't take their interest, then they'd just walk straight on. If they saw something, then maybe ask a question about it, then they'd continue looking at all the rest. So I noticed that everything really has to be within reaching distance for people. So that's one thing I learned from it, which, you know, you can't really put a monetary price on that. Knowledge, so to speak, I wouldn't say. But really just seeing everything in real time and, you know, just having it right in front of your eyes, how people are shopping, is really interesting. It was definitely worth doing for me.
Yeah, and it's also a good day for the likes of yourselves and for me, it's a good day out for looking at guitars, looking
Yeah.
at guitar builders and luthiers, because there is like a little. I don't know why it is, but I won't speak to some of them for months and months and months, and then I'll see them at guitar show, and we'll catch up and go, oh, "How's it going? How's business?" And yeah, you see some really really nice things, and I'll tend to get a bit distracted and walk around and look at some. I think the last show I went to, I bought a Telecaster, a Squire, which is the only one that we were discussing earlier that's got strings on at the moment. So yeah, good day out.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a dangerous place to go for people like us. You go in there with the intention of earning money and you spend more than you earn.
Yeah, typical. Always the way.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with like talking to people. There definitely seems to be a community element. There's nothing that compares to talking to someone in person, being able to walk up to someone and introduce yourself, say what you do. There's lots of people that have never heard of you or myself, unless you, as you say, you just walk up to people and you talk to them. So it's very interesting to see. That shows everything seems to be very polarized. It's either, I think with guitar parts and guitars in general, everything's polarized in that you have the very modern sort of metal. I mean metal in terms of the genre as opposed to the material. Metal guitars, you know, your high gain shredding stuff, and then you have your very vintage accurate stuff. So it's very interesting to see how the two differ and, you know, where the modern stuff is going.
Yeah, and just going back to guitar, the tabletop guitar shows. It's every time I go, there'll be a new. I've been to the Kempton one. I think I've done four. I went to the very first one I did, so 4 years running now. I think I've done 3 or 4. Top of my head, I think it's 4. The guy next to me, the stands around. I've always kept the same stand, and the stands around me have changed every year. So it's amazing to see that. I honestly feel the industry in the UK, it really is booming at the moment. There's an unbelievable range of luthiers out there building some incredible guitars. There's so many pickup and pedal manufacturers. Fun fact about me, I've never owned a pedal in my life, and I feel like I'm really missing out. So I'm going to go and buy a pedal at the next show I go to. But it's the other really interesting thing I've noticed as well. A lot of the guys on the stands, like yourself or myself, or just an example, Tate FX, or any other pickup company or pedal company, they're all quite young. It's like I get the feeling that the future is going to be. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people fear that the industry's dying out. There's not enough young people playing guitar compared to what it was in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, for example. But I've noticed that a lot of the guitar techs, especially in the age of social media and everything else, a lot of the guitar techs and builders, pickup winders, pedal makers, they're all fairly young. I'm talking like between the age of 20 and 35. That's not obviously a golden rule. It's a trend I've noticed, which kind of tells me like the future of the hopefully is in good hands. Because I mean,
I would completely agree with that. When I did my
obviously
first,
the old guard. I don't want to say the old guard, but I've come across the odd potential customer that said, "Oh, I only trust my guitar tech. He's been my tech for 40 years."
Mm.
And I'm thinking, well, cool, very respectable. I'd probably only trust someone with a lot of experience myself, but there's going to come a point where there are going to be this new breed of guitar techs and people coming through, and it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a question as well. 40 years can't be long till he's retiring, you wouldn't think.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's just I've just noticed that because it has been a concern. I mean, you mentioned right at the very beginning about Fender Play. Um, I think they have made an effort as well to target female guitarists, which again I think is incredible because there is a maybe not so much in 2020, but I think there might have been a perception 20 years ago that it was quite a and long before that it was predominantly a male dominated hobby, really, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, for example, on the fretboard forum, there are a few girls on there, aren't there? But I don't think there's that many. And I think that's one
couldn't
thing
name
that
one.
Fender, yeah, I think that's one thing that Fender have concentrated on. They're trying to, a bit like when Peroni, the beer brand, or Stella, released the half pint glasses to target the female market. Um, a lot of brands are doing the same. I think what we need, either in the UK or international, is like a really good. I mean, there are loads of really good all-female rock bands, but one to go like a bit global, like an explosion in popularity. I think that would really help.
Yeah, well, I think for just guitar in general, any sort of. We definitely have lots of big guitar driven bands. I think you see them mainly in metal at the moment with the sort of modern like metalcore and deathcore and all that such is still going strong. But yeah, I think in the age of social media, the fact that we have so much talent at our fingertips, there's nothing that I don't know. There's a few players that you can look at and your jaw will just about hit the ground. But I think the fact that we're so spoiled with seeing it all so easily and conveniently that things don't blow us away in the way that Jimi Hendrix would back in the 60s and 70s. Uh, I think it's
Yeah,
I can't remember when it was about.
absolutely part of it. And I suspect as well. I mean, I've never, I'm not a musician. I've never recorded anything, but I suspect it's harder than ever to break into whether or not you want to break into the mainstream, but I suspect it's harder than ever to make it as a musician due to the unbelievably fierce competition. Like, I've got a couple of friends that do completely different genre of music. It's hip hop. Um, he's he's been battling for 15 years, and he's so close to the cusp. Um, it's about I think he's just been signed and all sorts. Whereas I suspect 20 years ago he probably might not have had the same issues. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's both a curse and a blessing in that everyone can see this talent so easily, so much less blows them away, but at the same time it's so much easier to get yourself in front of people.
Yeah, that's what I mean when earlier I said it was um, probably easier to if you were aspiring to be like a prominent YouTuber, it probably would have been easier to jump on it 10 years ago. It's the beauty of hindsight and having the foresight, really, isn't it? Um, where I don't know. I'm not making. I'm just going to make this stat up. But I'm sure there's a crazy amount of YouTube channels that are created every day, but probably within their thousands. Every single day, there's thousands of new channels being created on YouTube. Whereas if you go back 10 years, it was probably nowhere near that.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. There's been many people. There's one guy that I watch on YouTube about marketing and such called Gary V, and he constantly bragging about the fact that he saw where YouTube was going and he got on YouTube pretty much from the start, and he's multi-millionaire as a result of it. So it's definitely a bit like Bitcoin, isn't it? You need to invest early to see the best returns. So
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, that's not to say you shouldn't use YouTube. I mean, my
yeah,
YouTube channel,
exactly. I
I've got
still think nowadays it's still our most valuable marketing
Yeah,
technique.
absolutely. I would know. I wouldn't change it for the world. I've got 4,000 subscribers, which is nothing
That's
compared
impressive.
to. Yeah, I'm quite. I'm like it's a lot more than I thought I'd ever get. And that equates to £5 a day in ad revenue. Which
There's so
again
much
is
more in marketing.
yeah, exactly. But and whilst that's negligible, I mean that's 150. That's £1,800 a year, which can be reinvested into um, I don't know. I want to say guitar, but um, new equipment. I mean, you could get a very, very good soldering iron for that. You get a lot of good soldering irons for that price.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but that's what I use it for. I mean, it's growing exponentially. But no, we'll never be a massive YouTube channel simply because it's videos on how to wire a guitar. Like it's just never going to get into its millions, is it? Um, but
I
no.
don't know. I'm not sure how
Every,
much demand there is out there. I think a lot of viewers are just going to watch it out of curiosity, even if they have no intention of doing it.
yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have followed Crimson Guitars over the last 10 years or so. I don't know when their channel started. Um,
Oh, they've got to be going for quite a while. I know Ben is quite the YouTube celebrity now.
yeah, it must be around the 2010 mark. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'll have a look later. See how
Yeah,
long.
they've done very well. I think their business model of combining the YouTube personality and how they're building stuff along with the business, it's definitely been on the back of that. They've dealt with it very, very well.
Yeah, very well. And obviously they've got aside from the guitars, they've got the tool making luthier tools, which is
Yeah.
they're unbelievable as well. So no, fair play.
Yeah, it's definitely a different business model. I feel like YouTube is so big that you can really focus a whole business around it, even if your business isn't just to be a YouTuber. If YouTube is your main marketing, we've seen it with the recent controversial stuff with Rob Chapman, that his brand is so closely intertwined with his personality that there's been attacks on his personality. I'm not sure if you're up to date with that.
Uh, I did. No, not really. I mean, yeah, I watched. I saw because I subscribed to him, and I saw he posted this response video, um, just around Christmas time to an original video which had been taken down. So I'm not. To be honest, I don't really have much of a clue on what's going on. But going back to your point, I guess I mean I knew Chapman Guitars before I knew who Rob Chapman was, but now it's more the other way around. So yeah, I guess you're right. Name and brand is very, very well entwined. Um,
Yeah, the point I was making with that is that it seems to be quite a risky strategy, and especially Rob Chapman seems to be quite a polarizing character, and a lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him. So if you lose a lot of your popularity as a result of any sort of attacks or defamation or whatever it may be, your business suffers. I mean, there's a lot of ways that your business can suffer very quickly anyway, but that just seems to be sort of adding more eggs to another risky basket there, so to speak.
yeah, and I guess that's the inherent dangers of modern society. Going back to what we said at the very beginning, if someone wants to return a product, I mean, you and I have both seen companies get torn to shreds on the fretboard. Rightly or wrongly, some of it's deserved, some of it's not. It's like the mentality of when it starts to snowball is when it can all go wrong quite quickly. Um, so I think you generally get a vibe on how a person. I mean, I've been very, very lucky in the 3 years so far, 3.5 years. I'll tend, if someone wants a refund on a pot, I'll just give them the £6 back, because it's not worth it. What could
Yeah.
potentially happen? I mean, that's a very cynical way of looking at it, but um, yeah, I think image is everything. Word of mouth is the most effective form of marketing. Just recommendations from others. And equally, I guess negative word of mouth marketing is just as damaging. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with what you were saying, you're saying it's cynical, but I'm not sure it's so much cynical, but realistic that a lot of sellers have sort of dug themselves the hole of this mentality of the seller's always right. So the buyer's always right. So a lot of buyers now are very accustomed to the fact that if they want to, obviously they're legally entitled to return something, but I have a lot of people constantly arguing. I mean, I had someone recently arguing about how a pickup kit doesn't work. So, if someone argues with you like that, you imagine in real life, um, if you were having a discussion with someone, the fact that I've built many thousands of these pickups should be enough for him to
Yeah,
take my word for it. But
it's
there's
actually
definitely a mentality of a lot of people that if I complain about something, you have to refund me and sort it out immediately.
yeah, it's actually the reason I stopped. I've not sold on eBay for August 2018, so 18 months coming up to. Um, for two reasons. One, the website itself was doing better and better and better to the point where I couldn't handle two streams. I know that sounds lazy because I know the vast majority of businesses do have two income streams, two platforms rather, website and then eBay or Reverb. Um, I only ever got one negative feedback on eBay, and it was because it was just lazy. It was a lazy buyer's mentality. So he found the product, he ordered it, it was delivered. There was nothing wrong with the product whatsoever. He then realised, after doing some research afterwards, that he could have had the same product direct off our website for 10% cheaper. So I've always had the eBay prices 10% more to make up for the fees. I mean, rightly or wrongly. And he didn't like that. So he left me negative feedback saying, oh, this guy's a thief. You can buy it direct for 10% cheaper. And I was just like, oh. The problem with eBay is you're more likely to get bad feedback just because it's the eBay buyer protection where
Yeah.
the buyer's always right, and the buyer is always right. I have no complaints about that. But I just came off it because I think you're more likely to come across someone who's just woken out of bed the wrong side of bed in the morning. I mean, that's someone could just wake up in a bad mood and your delivery is a day late and they just leave you bad feedback without really thinking
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I certainly feel like the worst part of the job is dealing with couriers. I use Royal Mail. You were saying you use DHL. I don't know if they're any more reliable, but yeah, if something's late, then I don't know how, but there seems to be a lot of people who still think delivery is entirely in the seller's control, which it absolutely isn't. We dispatch it. As long as it's dispatched on time, we've done everything we can. We're not in control of anything more than that.
Yeah, but it is our responsibility, I believe.
Yeah, it's our legal obligation, but
Yeah,
not saying
I
we
mean,
can control.
I know it's our obligation, but you get it, especially internationally, because Royal Mail they're very good. That's why sorry, just to correct you, I use Royal Mail pretty much exclusively. I use DHL to import because it's high value and I need it quickly. And I've set up a DHL account mainly for exporting post Brexit because at the moment there's no issues, but there might be with exporting. Um, but Royal Mail generally next day, if you do it first class, it's 90. I think they aim to do it within 3 working days, but 95% of the time it's the next day. But internationally, especially with Royal Mail, once it's gone into the delivery partner's hands in, let's just say, France, um, and then you'll get an email from the customer, and the bloody French will be striking, as always, and you'll get an email from the customer saying, "Oh, where's my order? It's been sat in the Paris airport for a week." I'm like, "Well, I'm really sorry, but there's absolutely nothing I can do. It's up to the French to deliver it."
Yeah,
It's quite
especially
rare, but you
given
do it.
dropping numbers
It's
for that.
rare, but there's nothing you can do. I mean, so I say I'll leave it with me. I'll look into it, and the reality is, Royal Mail can't help you or me until 30 days have elapsed since the delivery. Like, it's just
Yeah, exactly.
they can't. You can't put a claim in if it goes missing for another month until after the last expected delivery date. Um, Thankfully, they always get delivered in the end, but the odd one can be quite slow, and it's out of our control. But I think we have to try and do what we can.
Yeah, I think it's a small price to pay for the benefits of our job, but it certainly is the biggest price in my opinion.
Absolutely.
You said you're going to move into the pickup world in the near future. What is it that you think you're going to be bringing out in terms of pickup models?
To be honest, it's just going to be it's just going to be like a fairly standard range. I don't know if you know what they called Axis RS.
Yeah, familiar.
It's going to be fairly similar to that, not copycat or anything like that, but in terms of that sort of price range. So I'm not going to go for the high end boutique because we're already sport for choice in the UK. I think it's probably starting to become a bit saturated. I just want to look for like the mid price range.
Yeah.
And I'm probably only going to be doing, originally anyway, single coil humbucker. Well, Strat, Les Paul, and that. Think about it that way, yeah. So Stratocaster, single coils, humbuckers for humbucking guitars, and Telecaster. And that, honestly, that'll be it for at least a year. Because it's resources as well. So I mean, it's already for something that's a development project. I mean, I've probably spent close to $600 on equipment. So I bought a load of bobbins in bulk, and then I took a couple of kits off you last week, didn't I? Just to learn about how they all assemble and what to do and that sort of thing. So no, I mean, like I said earlier, I don't think I'll have anything on the market for several months at least.
Okay, interesting. So, are you planning on coming up with your own completely new innovative designs, or just sort of staying in the ballpark of the vintage accurate stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's funny you mention that because I've just discovered this newly discovered for me anyway, this YouTube channel called Dylan Talks Tone. And I think it's a really, really cool channel because he just talks about all kinds of the myths and legends of guitar electronics and capacitors and pickup wire and different types of how this changes that. I think originally, I'll be honest and just say I'm probably just going to do like a standard 50s or 60s single coil for Strat. Just something that someone can buy for hopefully something that's better than a stock pickup on a Far Eastern model, for example. I hope. And then we'll take it from that. My biggest worry, I don't know how, I was going to ask you about this, how to come up with pickup names that A, don't sound ridiculous, B, kind of, make sense, or because some of the names on the market, I'm like, that's my biggest worry, like what am I going to name a pickup that's been done so many times by other people?
I think you're asking
your
the wrong
names,
person with that.
some of your names sound like dinosaurs, don't they? Like I don't know if that was intentional. Or...
Dinosaurs? Certainly not.
It's just the way I read it. Some of them are.
When I started, I saw a lot of people describing pickups as being, hot or all the rest of it. So I thought, well, hot sounds like weather, so we'll do it on sort of weather things. So I've got like humid tropics, murky horizon, heat wave, firestorm, all those sort of weather things.
What's your Telecaster set that begins with a C?
Cirrostratus.
That's where I get the dinosaur thing from. But it's obviously
a cloud.
Oh, it's just the way my mind reads things sometimes. So I think your pickup names are really, really cool. And that's one thing I've got in the back of my mind. I might just be really boring and call it, I don't know, Strat, S-Type, something. We'll have to see. I'll worry about that in a few months' time.
Yeah, cross the bridge when you get to it, right?
Yeah, at the moment I'm just more worried about if I can actually do it, because at the moment I'm really not too confident, but I'm sure if I put my mind to it the same way I did with everything else that we've done since 2016, I'm sure I've wound 3, which I'm going to put in my guitar this afternoon, and I'll see how that. I mean, I haven't even got any wax potting equipment at the moment. I've just dipped them in a bit of lacquer and we'll see how that goes. But
Lacquer works just as well. It just takes ages to cure.
yeah,
There's a few of my pickup models that I use my 3D printer for bobbins and such. The material doesn't quite. It tends to warp slightly under the heat of the wax, so I lacquer pop them. It works exactly the same way. It just they smell very lacquery for quite a while.
yeah. I can imagine. I tend to do it in the evening when my partner's in bed, and I'll do it in the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've just about covered all the questions I have for you today. So if you have anything else you'd like to say.
No, that's it really. Thanks very much for having me on. Best of luck going forward with your podcast series. I'm proud I'm the first one. We'll see how. Hopefully, you'll get some good feedback, and we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, as we said before we started recording this, you're a bit of a guinea pig for trying this. So thank you very much for. I think so far it's gone pretty well. So hopefully the end product of this podcast is going to be good.
Yeah, definitely.
So yes, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening.